I am going to tell you exactly what is going to happen in the next 5 to 7 minutes. I am going to say something that someone over here is going to think is funny. As a matter of fact, they're going to think it's twice as funny as somebody over here. And someone over there might not think it's funny at all, but not Carrie. Why is that? It comes down to two things. Where you were raised and who you were raised with. I was, in my early childhood, raised in England with this brood of people. The thing about English humor, I can tell you in just 1 minute, the very quintessential piece of English humor, so that wherever you go in the world, if you would like to get somebody who's British to laugh at what you're saying, it is not hard to do. This is what has to happen. You have to tell a joke or a story that includes two things, two very important things that are involved in English humor. The first one being Her Majesty the Queen. The second one being flatulence. It will never fail. Now the problem is this. English humor centers on one thing. You are not allowed to take yourself seriously, nor is anyone else ever allowed to take themselves too seriously. But I had a problem. I wasn't just raised with these folks. I was raised with a father who was a disciplinarian and a minister, a very serious man. I think I've got a picture of it. Yes. Now, my dad was not Perry Mason, but this is exactly the expression that I remember for my entire childhood. And these people look so nice, Danny, Nancy, Peter, Wendy, right? No, they were horrible. What they did was make it their life mission to make me laugh so uncontrollably that he would get me in trouble. And this caused all kinds of problems. As a matter of fact, I ended up with a humor disorder. It's called the Eulane disorder. Uncontrollable laughter at inappropriate moments disorder. I'll give you an example of how this works. Someone takes themselves too serious, or you're in a really serious situation, and then something, internal message says to me, not funny. And at some point the tension builds, and then it's a catapult into uncontrollable laughter. It happens every time. It's been happening my whole life. Here's an example. My father said, here's a deadline by which the garage has to be cleaned out. It had to be cleaned out because my mother was absolutely convinced that if any of the neighbors could see into our garage when the door was up, they would all think we were alcoholics. So I had a deadline. I missed the deadline. So I decide to plead guilty with explanation. So I say to my dad, Dad, I was collecting money for my paper route, and it took forever. And he said, I told you, no ifs, ands, or buts. And mister, you just laid a big butt on me. Not funny, not funny, not funny. Grounded for a month. And if ever there was a time not to laugh, it's when he's preaching from the pulpit. But then he went and did things like this. And God said to Moses, Moses, take off your feet. You are on holy ground. Not funny. Not funny. The whole congregation's not laughing. You can't laugh. Next thing I know, my sister is holding me up to get me out of the auditorium. Grounded for another month. And I would like to tell you that it got better when I got older. That I got mature and got past this disorder. No. I became a minister myself. And there was a visiting old minister coming in to teach about Abraham. And I had many guests coming from different congregations in the area. And I'm sitting up there, and here he goes to preach about Abraham. And doesn't he just, well, first of all, if you are ever a wise old minister teaching about Abraham, I'm going to give you a phrase you need to practice your elocution. Pitched his tents. Pitched his tents. But dang it if this guy didn't go. And from that time on, Abraham pitched his tents away from Sodom. Whatever moral authority I had in this congregation was gone in an instant. The worst thing to do for my dad was to embarrass him. And he knew that this disorder was not just my own. Every one of my siblings and my mother and my sweet little English grandmother all suffered from the very same disorder. And he took us to these people's house. I noticed it's not just my dad. I've noticed a lot of people who come from the Midwest have this take themselves a little too seriously problem. Well, he takes us to this house of these older couple. I think I have a picture of them. Yeah. Yes. And we sit through this, and as we get to the front door, my dad goes, to all of us, mother and grandma included, best behavior. All right, so he's already set us up. So we get in there, and this mind-numbing conversation happens, and it goes on forever. And as we get to the end of the meal, the host of the meal decides to share with us something really horrible that happened that he heard about in the news. And he says, this ambulance went to pick up a guy that was in an accident, and then he had broken his arm. When they picked him up, they tripped over the wreckage and dropped him, and he broke his other arm. Not funny! Matter of context now.